stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Feel the air fill your lungs. And now, release it. I want you to connect with a feeling that all of us at some point have experienced. The sense that time is passing, but nothing is changing. That fine sand trickling through the hourglass, taking with it days, months, years, and along with them, our hope. Have you ever felt that way? Like you're trapped in an endless cycle, watching life happen from the other side of a window fogged up by your own pain? Today, we're going to talk about a woman who lived this exact reality, not for a month, not for a year, but for over a decade. A decade of silence, of isolation, and of a wound that no one could see, but which bled without stopping, taking away not just her health, but her identity, her dignity, and all of her resources. This is the story of a desperate faith that dared to break the silence and touch the impossible. Imagine waking up every single day to the same sentence. For 14 long years, this was her reality. 14 years. Think about what that means. Children she saw being born were now teenagers. The seasons had changed hundreds of times. The world around her was spinning, but hers remained frozen in the same moment of suffering. The Bible, in the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, introduces us to this anonymous yet universal figure. She doesn't have a name, perhaps because she could be any one of us. She is the representation of that part of us that suffers in secret, that smiles in public while fighting an internal battle invisible to the eyes of others. Her condition, a chronic hemorrhage, was more than a physical illness. In the culture of her time, it was a decree of uncleanness. This meant she couldn't hug her loved ones, couldn't enter the temple to pray, couldn't even sit in a chair without making it unclean for others. She was a shadow in her own life, an exile in her own city. She had tried everything. The biblical text says she had spent all that she had on physicians, an adaptation of Luke 8:43. Think about this woman's journey. Each new specialist, each new treatment was a new seed of hope planted in already tired soil. She likely traveled to distant cities, consulted healers, herbalists, the most renowned health professionals of her region. Each of them, with their theories and promises, represented a glimpse of light. She handed over her last coins, sold her possessions, gave up her assets, not for luxury, but for the simple chance to live again. And with every failed attempt, the darkness grew a little thicker. The Gospel of Mark is brutally honest when it says she was no better, but rather grew worse. Mark 5:26. Can you feel the weight of that sentence? The despair of investing everything you have, your money, your time, your faith, only to find yourself in an even worse situation? It's financial bankruptcy added to the bankruptcy of hope. It's the kind of pain that suffocates, that makes us question if it's still worth fighting. And then, in the midst of this 14-year desert, a whisper of hope cuts through the air. A name begins to be spoken in the streets, in the squares, in the markets. Jesus, a carpenter from a small town, Nazareth, who walked through villages and cities, and wherever he went, extraordinary things happened. They said the blind could see, the paralyzed could walk, that even the dead were raised. For most, these were fascinating, perhaps exaggerated stories. But for a woman with nothing left to lose, a story was all she needed. Curiosity began to sprout in her weary heart. What if it was true? What if this man was different from all the others? He wasn't a physician charging for a consultation, not a healer selling magic potions. People said he had authority, that his word had power. Faith, That mysterious force born on the edge of despair began to germinate within her. It wasn't a robust, confident faith, but a timid, almost last-gasp faith. If I can only touch his clothes, I will be healed. This sentence is the epicenter of her entire journey. Put yourself in her place for a moment. She didn't dare to think of asking for an audience, of interrupting the master, of exposing her shame publicly. Her condition had taught her to be invisible. Years of rejection had created in her the belief that she was not worthy of being seen or heard. So she devised a silent plan, a plan of almost clandestine faith. She didn't need a public miracle, a grand speech. She just needed a touch, a single, discreet touch. Now, imagine the scene. It's not a quiet path. Jesus isn't walking alone in an open field. He is in the middle of a frantic crowd, a sea of people pressing in on him from all sides. The Gospel of Mark describes the crowd as thronging him in Mark 5:24. Think about what it's like to be in a crowd like that. The noise, the pushing, the heat, the dust. For a woman already weakened by 14 years of a debilitating illness, every step was a battle. She, who had lived so long in isolation, now voluntarily throws herself into the epicenter of chaos. Every elbow she took, every person who shoved past her without seeing her, was a painful reminder of her invisibility. But the fear of remaining as she was infinitely greater than the fear of the crowd. That whisper of hope in her heart was now screaming louder than the noise around her. She had to get to him. She pushes forward, squeezing through the gaps, dodging bodies, her eyes fixed on a single target, the figure of Jesus ahead. She can't see his face, only his back, the movement of his clothes. Every foot gained is a victory. She is weak, perhaps dizzy, but the image of healing, the image of a restored life drives her forward. It's the kind of strength that only desperation combined with faith can generate. She isn't thinking about the obstacles, about the impossibility of the task. Her mind is focused on a single thought, a mantra repeating endlessly. If I can just touch his clothes. It's a stubborn faith, a faith that refuses to take no for an answer from the universe. She isn't asking for permission. She is going to take possession of her blessing. She reaches out her hand, her fingers trembling, crossing the final gap between her and her miracle. Her heart must be pounding uncontrollably, a war drum beating against hopelessness. And then it happens. Her fingers, for a split second, touch the hem of his garment. In that instant, her universe realigns. The biblical text is direct and powerful. Immediately, the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease, in Mark 5:29. Think about that. It wasn't a gradual improvement. It wasn't partial relief. It was instantaneous. An energy, a virtue, a divine power flowed from him, traveled through the fabric of his clothes, found the sick body of that woman, and in the blink of an eye rewrote 14 years of history. That flow of life that had been leaving her day after day was stopped. The wound closed, the pain ceased. In that touch, she didn't just receive physical healing, she received her life back. The awkward silence that had surrounded her was filled with the vibrant certainty of restoration. For a moment, she must have stood there, paralyzed in the middle of the noisy crowd, living the most silent and profound moment of her existence. Gratitude must have flooded her soul in an overwhelming wave. The plan had worked. She had done it. She could leave, disappear back into the crowd, as anonymous as she arrived, but now whole, complete. But the story doesn't end there, because the power that had gone out of Jesus did not go unnoticed by him. At the same moment she felt the healing, he stopped. In the middle of that chaotic, pushing crowd, he stops and asks the most unexpected question: "Who touched my clothes?" in Mark 5:30. Try to visualize the confusion this question caused. His disciples, ever so pragmatic, respond almost with impatience. You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you ask, "Who touched me?" In other words, "Master, everyone is touching you. How can we possibly know who it was?" They saw only the physical contact, the casual touch of the crowd. But Jesus felt something different. He felt a touch with intention, a touch of faith. He felt power, virtue, go out from him. He wasn't looking for a culprit. He was looking for the person who had connected with him on a deeper level. He looked around, not with accusation, but with purpose. He was not going to let this miracle remain anonymous. The physical healing was only the first part. The complete restoration was yet to come. Have you ever stopped to think about the courage this woman had? And about your own life? How many times do we feel like her, invisible in the middle of the crowd, carrying a pain that no one sees? Maybe your hemorrhage isn't physical. Maybe it's an emotional wound, a dream that died, a loneliness that consumes you, an anxiety that paralyzes you. We get used to living with our pain, hiding behind smiles, thinking we don't deserve to be seen or healed. This story teaches us that faith doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it's a whisper, a secret plan, a desperate touch in the right direction. If this message, if this woman's journey so far is resonating within you, if it's touching a place that needs healing, I want to invite you to do something different. I'm not just going to ask you to subscribe to the channel because that's about numbers. I want to invite you to be part of a community of people who, like this woman, are searching for a touch of hope. By subscribing, you're not just supporting our work, you're saying yes to more stories like this one, stories that remind us we are not alone in our battles. And more than that, I want to propose an interaction. Instead of just commenting "Amen" or "Great video," I invite you to do an exercise of faith right here, right now. Close your eyes for a moment and think about what hem of the garment you need to touch today. What is the first step, no matter how small, that you can take towards your healing, your restoration? In the comments below, write a single word that represents that step. It could be courage, forgiveness, conversation, decision, hope. No explanations, no justifications, just one word. Let your comment be your touch of faith, the beginning of your miracle. Let's turn this comment section into a mural of first steps, a collective testimony of faith. Jesus' question hangs in the air, heavy with a silent power. Who touched me? And the woman, who moments before felt the euphoria of being healed, is now overcome by a completely different feeling: fear. The text says that she, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. Why the fear? Because in her mind, she had stolen a blessing. She, a woman considered unclean, had touched a holy man in public. By the law of the time, she not only risked being reprimanded, but the public humiliation would be devastating. She approaches, trembling, expecting condemnation. She braces for the judgment that society had imposed on her for 14 long years. She throws herself at his feet, no longer in hope of a miracle, but in expectation of punishment. And she confesses everything: the secret plan, the desperate faith, the furtive touch. And it is here, in this moment of absolute vulnerability, that the story reaches its peak of beauty and meaning. Jesus looks at this trembling woman at his feet, and his words bring not condemnation, but the most profound affirmation. He doesn't say, "How dare you touch me?" He doesn't scold her. Instead, he lifts her up. He gives her a new name, a new identity. He calls her daughter. Listen to the depth of that. He doesn't call her the woman with the issue of blood, or the unclean one, or the sick one. He calls her daughter. With a single word, he reintegrates her into the human and divine family, restoring the dignity that was stolen from her. He sees her. He validates her. He brings the miracle that happened in secret into the light, not to expose her, but to honor her. And then he completes it. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. This sentence is the key to everything. Your faith has made you well. He doesn't say, my power has made you well, or my garment has healed you. He attributes the miracle to her. He validates her action, her courage, the stubborn faith that made her break through barriers. He transforms her from a passive victim into an active agent of her own liberation. And by saying, go in peace, he isn't just wishing her a nice day. The word peace here in the original Greek, eirene, which connects to the Hebrew shalom, means so much more than the absence of conflict. It means wholeness, completeness, wellness, security, prosperity on every level, physical, emotional, and spiritual. It was the complete blessing. He didn't just stop the bleeding. He healed the wounds of her soul, restored her position in society, and sent her into a new life of fullness. The physical healing was the beginning. The restoration of her identity was the true miracle. She arrived as an anonymous shadow and left as a beloved daughter, seen, healed, and whole. If this journey we've taken together today has touched your heart, if the story of this courageous woman has brought you a breath of hope, then know that this space was created for that. It was created for you. We don't want to be just another channel you watch. We want to be a community, a safe place where stories of faith, pain, and overcoming can be shared. If you're not yet part of our family, I invite you from the bottom of my heart to subscribe, not as a number, but as a valued member of this growing community. And more than that, we want to hear from you. Your story matters. Maybe you're someone who, like this woman, lived through your own desert and found healing. Maybe you're in the middle of the crowd right now, looking for the strength to make your own touch of faith. We want the comments below to become a book of living testimonies. Tell us your story. What did you learn from this woman's journey today? How does her story connect with yours? By sharing, you not only process your own journey, but you could be the light that someone else, reading in silence, needed to not give up. Let's build an environment of welcome and hope together. Thank you for letting us into your life today. Go in peace, and may you be freed from all your suffering.